you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
Today we're introducing Brett Parbery. Brett's a specialist dressage rider, trainer, also a competitor and a coach, competing at an international level. How are you today, Brett?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Glennis.
Great. Brett, we often will introduce people and then talk about their favourite quote. So have you got a quote for us today?
Yeah, I mean, it was my father said to me once, the secret to having a happy life is to find something you really like to do and then try to be good enough at it that people will pay you to do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I've always had it in the back of my mind, and thankfully I really enjoy training and riding horses and coaching people and happen to be able to make a living out of it. I always joke that I'm unemployed, but it's quite busy.
Okay. It's good that you're able to do something that a lot of people don't get paid to do, but you're getting paid to do it. So it's good. Yeah. And I know, usually I say that how, explain a bit more, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Brett, you're from a horse family, but your introduction to dressage, I think, is a bit interesting. So normally I would say, how did you start with horses? But I think, can you tell us a bit about it's almost like you had a life with horses before dressage and then a life with horses after dressage. Is that explained fairly well?
Yeah, look, I grew up in a horse training family and mainly for camp grafting, but, my father also, we played polo cross and we were into a bit more quarter horses and we're into cutting as well, but let's say predominantly camp grafting and cattle horse sports. So I grew up in that. And then, as most kids did in our town or in the region that I grew up in, you either went into show jumping full-time or you went into rodeo. So the guys that were in my year at school, quite a few of us went into rodeo. So I guess before that, though, like without winding back the clock, my sister used to do a bit of showing, like a bit of riding at shows, and my father, well, back in those days, the ag shows up in the area where I come from, which is North Coast of New South Wales, the ag shows would have, your hack classes and your riding classes and those things in the morning, and then you'd have your sporting events in the afternoon, and then you'd either have your rodeo that night, and then you'd have the camp draft the next day or something along those lines. It was a bit of like a festival where you'd have a bit of everything. So, I did a lot of showing and did Brisbane Royal Show and a few other sort of bigger shows as my boy rider and in the hack classes. So that's sort of where my position always came from, that sort of stuff. And then as far as the horsemanship and the horse training goes, I've got a father that's a real thinker when it comes to training horses, and he's just a student of it, like he loves it, and he's a very good horseman himself. So the horsemanship side of things came where I was mentored by him. And then I guess the love for dressage came from his interest in dressage. Like he was always turning to dressage principles to find better ways to train his horses. So, as long as I can remember, there's always been a dressage book sitting on the reading table, and he's been reading it or flicking through it. And, he just loves to read and learn the theory and then go out and practice it on his horses. And I just grew up with that mentorship. So to come across the dressage, whilst I was coming out of rodeo, and it makes for a great story, this guy was a rodeo guy and now he's a dressage guy. Well, it actually wasn't quite that big a jump. Like I was pretty much as close as a cowboy could get to a dressage rider before I became a dressage rider, even though I guess in my first year of dressage, and my original dressage instructor, Vicky Bryden, she would tell you, like, I knew nothing about dressage, but I had feel and horsemanship, and I had a position, which I still have now, that she said all I needed to learn really was the ins and outs of dressage to sort of pick it up. Mm-hmm. And that was about just nearly 20 years ago. It'll be 20 years ago next year, actually, that I went into dressage. So, yeah.
Okay. And when you say you went into dressage, you went from rodeo to dressage, how old were you at that stage?
I was 26.
Okay.
Yep.
And within that first year, just of you saying, right, I've gone from rodeo into dressage, what sort of level were you riding at?
Well, I got the opportunity. This is where things fell into place really nicely for me. So I started my dressage career at FEI level on a horse that was already made. The horse was like a schoolmaster and a very good one. Like Vicky Bryden had done a great job training this mare called Liebling. And virtually I just spent the first year pushing buttons, on the horse. And Vicky used to give me a lesson every afternoon after work. And I was working as a property valuer at the time. That's what my trade is. And Vicky would give me a lesson after work and virtually just told me how to push buttons on this horse that she'd created. And, I got a really good introduction of how to ride FEI level, but, then I had to learn. Then I went to Europe the year after, and I spent 3 years over there learning how to actually put the horses together from 4 years old up.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, no, I had in my first year at dressage, I won a state New South Wales championship at Intermediate 1 and ended up third in Australia for the Prince and George, which, that was just pushing buttons on a very nice horse. That wasn't really riding dressage.
It was a bit of a fairy tale, really, something that people dream of. I just start in dressage and start at FEI level. Yeah, something people certainly aspire to.
No, very, very lucky.
Yeah.
What
do you think, because it's not just the dressage, you'd already done a lot with horses. For people to start with horses, what do you think the core skills are that they need?
Well, I always say you should be a horse person first and a dressage rider second.
Okay.
The horsemanship itself is the key. So whether it's riding, camp rafting or cutting, it's the horsemanship that should be considered first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a matter of how to read the animal, feel the animal, develop the timing, develop the balance to be able to deliver your aids to the horse. Whether, and that doesn't really even matter what sport you're doing. That's what horsemanship is. They'll read the horse, have yourself in a position where you can feel the horse and have the timing to then apply your aids appropriately. And then as far as then dressage, you can Google things on dressage and learn the theory nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
To learn the theory is not the hard part. It's actually then putting into practice with what we just said before, with timing, feeling, balance, and trying to make it. Having an overall philosophy, I think, is an important part too. So, because if you have a philosophy of what you want to be as a dressage rider or a cutting horse rider, well, then you'll always search for information that suits that philosophy. So, for example, my philosophy is, I want to try to make it look like it's easy. I'm doing nothing and that my horse is operating on small aids that people look at me riding and go, oh, wow, what's he doing? He looks like he's doing nothing,
Mm-hmm.
So therefore I've tried to find the skills and try to find the information to develop the skills to be able to fit that philosophy.
Yep.
I think developing a philosophy, it has to be appropriate to the sport. If someone says, I want to learn to ride FEI dressage with no bridle, well, you could do that at home, but you can't do it at a show.
Mm.
I've always enjoyed competition too. So a lot of my things that I try to search for and do always fit around how can I compete, because I believe that the true test of your horse training is in competition. A lot of people will go, oh, we don't like competing, and that's fair enough for them, but you really never know how good your training is until you have to apply it on a certain day at a certain time in a certain part of the arena and see how good your training is.
Yep. Okay, so that horsemanship first, the timing, feel, balance across all horse sports. What do you have then that's made you keep striving? Because, it hasn't all just been a straight road. There's been lots of ups and downs and you've just kept bouncing back and bouncing back. What makes it that you keep bouncing back and keep striving for the top level that a lot of other people might get, one or two hiccups or one or two bumps in the road and then they drop off and say, oh, that's not for me. What have you got that everyone else hasn't got?
I suppose I don't want to have any regrets. When I finish riding, one of the reasons I ride a lot of horses, I'm always at a show with, minimum sort of 5 horses, and I'm always flat out riding lots of horses. And, today I rode 10, and, I've just arrived in Melbourne. I'm going to do 12 lessons tomorrow for the next 3 days. And I guess I just don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to have missed anything. And if I really want to sit back, when I finish riding and say, yeah, look, I gave that a good shot. I did give that everything. Well, I don't really want to think, oh, maybe I should have done a bit more, or maybe I should have not given up too early.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I shouldn't have let that little trivial matter make me want to give up. And I think, just being resilient through those times and just focusing on the long journey. It really is a journey. I mean, if people are going to be in this sport full time like we are, you are going to have highs and lows. You just cannot sail through this thing unscathed and having a dream run. And you're also not going to have a bad run the whole time. You know, there are times when opportunities will come up and, you know, you're either going to have yourself in a position to take those opportunities or you're not going to be in a position to take them, and you have to learn from that. So, yeah, I mean, it has been a tough road, and I guess there's been times, I mean, it's human nature to think to yourself, well, maybe I should be doing something else, or maybe I should just give this up. It'd be a lot easier if I did give it up. But, you know, I think that for me personally it would be very hollow, and it'd be very hollow. It might feel good at the time, but it wouldn't feel good after that. The long term. So I think, yeah, I guess I just want no regrets. Like, I want to get to the end of my career and go, well, you know, I just give it everything I had, and yeah, it worked out and sometimes it didn't, but, you know, I know now that I did everything I could in my power, given the situation I was in, to do as good as I could.
Okay.
And I think that's when you can actually deliver to the upcoming generation. You can deliver them true wisdom if you've ridden many horses and tried to produce many different types and temperaments and all shapes and sizes to Grand Prix, and you've walked the road on a few horses and or as many horses as you can then really bring that back in wisdom to the kids. Because, I mean, we can all read the books and we can all sort of quote what someone else's experiences are from reading the books, but, you know, I want to have my own experiences. I want to learn from my experiences of training horses to Grand Prix, and I want to have my own words. You know, I don't want to have words I've read in a book or seen on a DVD or someone else's words. You know, I want these words to be mine, and I want them to be things that I've learned from and experienced.
Brett, you've talked about your father, you've talked about Vicky Bryden. Who else has influenced you that's really changed the way that you ride, that you train, that's made you make decisions that have changed your path?
Look, I've been influenced by a lot of people. Like, I think, you know, my father's mentorship for the love for dressage and the horsemanship, but then I guess like a lot of local competitors, like I went to the Sydney CDI in 96 or something. I was rodeoing at the time, but I went and watched it. And I watched, you know, the likes of Judy Dirks and Rosie and Heath Ryan and Matthew Dowsley and Rachel Downs. They all inspired me, and I kept watching those guys right through, even when I was just coming into the sport. And Clement Sturks, you know, like those guys, not that I've done a lot with Clement, but he still today can say something to me very openly and I'll take it on board. You know, he's very helpful. But I guess internationally, you know, people that I've really been attracted to over the times and been lucky enough to train with them all was Huberta Schmidt, Ulrich Solskjaer and Edward Gale. All different styles, but very good riders in their own way. They've all got their own system and have all been very, very successful. Yeah, and then probably of late I've been, you know, doing, you know, catching up with Carl a little bit and those guys that come out of Carl's system and just looking at that way. And Isabel Worth, I mean, she's a phenomenon. No one can really work out how Isabel's doing it, but, you know, that's the thing. She's just got such a feel and she's such a talent and such a horsewoman. Yeah, so there's been a lot of them, to be honest. You know, even Harry Bolt. I mean, Harry Bolt came through my place the other day and watched me ride for a couple of days, and, you know, he doesn't say much, but the little bits that he does say, you take it on board and listen to what he has to, like his view on it, because he's got a lot of wisdom there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've all had their little bit, I suppose, on me, and yeah.
I think they're all big names and all got big reputations. So, yeah, you're right. If you can just take little bits from all of them, I'm sure the little bits you can are very big.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Horses who've influenced you. Who have been the major influences there?
Oh, look, Victor Salute would be the major one, simply because he enabled me to have the success that I always dreamed about. But Whisper, he was the one that put me in gave me my first opportunity to ride Grand Prix.
Yep.
Yeah, Whisper, Victor Salute, they've all contributed something. You know, I've learned something from all of them. You know, Weltmeister has been a great teacher. Zeppelin, the one I have now, Grand Prix with Zeppelin, I mean, he's still teaching me, and some of those lessons are not easy to learn with him because he's teaching me how to ride a horse that's, you know, his size, hot, quite an awkward shape, But yeah, him, Lord of Loxley in Europe, when I had him at Grand Prix in Europe, he taught me a lot. They've all contributed to something.
Mm-hmm.
And even the ones I've got now, they're all so different. Bahallo, Lorenzo, they're two other Grand Prix ones. Even the young ones, there's one called Tea Time that I ride, a little totalist mare, and if I get anything wrong on her, she lets me know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they're all really good teachers, and I guess that's what us people, if we want to be horse men or women, we need to keep listening to the horse.
Yep.
And trying to work out better ways to unlock the talents of the horse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our job, really. I mean, the brief that we take on as horse trainers is, really, if we just have to keep searching for what's, the best out of the horse,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then we can start talking about whether we should be on better horses or not. And until we're really getting the best out of every horse, we're not really deserving of better horses.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, what do you think's your proudest moment?
Oh, definitely my proudest moment's got to be Kentucky 2010 when I was, finished in the top 10 in the world. And I guess the special, when I rode the special in Kentucky, I set that up basically for that. So, Aachen, I was sixth in Aachen, and that was a proud moment because Aachen's just one of those it's like the mecca for dressage riding. There's sort of 4 shows you want to do in your life. One of them's Aachen, another one's a World Cup final. Then there's the Olympic Games and the World Equestrian Games. So Aachen's high up there. And to ride out of the arena at Aachen, getting a standing ovation after my freestyle was really nice because that crowd's pretty hard to please.
Mm.
But yeah, that whole 2010 year was full of moments like that. And probably I went to Hickstead to compete, and I went over with Hans-Peter Minderhood, and he said to me, "Are you going to ride the special or the freestyle?" And I said, "I'm going to do the special." And he said, "Oh, there's way more prize money in the freestyle." And I said, "Oh, look, I don't really mind. I want to practice the special because I've got to do it. That's the one I want to nail in Kentucky."
Yep.
I went and rode the special and won the special, and he won the freestyle. But then about 6 weeks later, we were in Kentucky, and I had a great special, and he bombed out in the special. And it was that sort of bit of practice that I'd had the 6 weeks before that I think led to the success in Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess my proudest moment was sort of being ninth in the special and then coming through and getting ninth in the freestyle. For an Australian to be in the top 10. Was, a very proud moment. I mean, there's a lot of Australians there too, actually, in Kentucky. The second biggest ticket sales were to Australia after America in Kentucky, so there were plenty of Australians there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking about, the decision that you made at Hickstead. That's going back to before where you said you were focusing on the long journey. You weren't focusing on the bigger prize money at Hickstead. You were saying, no, I'm really focused on Kentucky. Yeah,
exactly. And I had that plan. I thought, I need to practice this special 1 or 2 more times because when you go to those big shows like the Olympics or the World Games, it's trying to make the cut. You're just trying to be in the top 30 to make it back to the special, and then you're trying to be in the top 15 to make it to the final. And you just got to keep making the cut. And I knew if I had any chance of making the cut, I had to ride that special again and run through the test and work out where I could make up more marks.
Yes.
And I'm glad I did because that really set me up for a good show in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Just going back to Zeppelin. Zeppelin's like 19 hands, isn't he? He's a pretty big horse.
Yeah, he wouldn't be much under, like he'd be 18.2 or 3.
Yeah. How tall are you?
I'm 6'2.5", just to be under 6'3".
Yeah, I'm just wondering because you'd really feel the difference. You said about riding a big horse but also a hot horse between him and the others.
Yeah, I mean, Weltmeyer's is not so big. Weltmeyer's is about 16.2.
Okay.
And but Zeppelin's probably the big challenge with Zeppelin is just his body shape. He's got a long back. He's big. He can be quite hot.
Mm-hmm.
I love him. He's a super horse to ride. It's a gold medal temperament in the horse. It's just I wish we'd had some hind legs that were a bit more under me and a back that was a bit stronger because, fundamentally, he's all of my weaknesses in one horse. Basically, I ride horses that are strong in the back much better than the ones that are weaker in the back, and I ride the ones that are a bit low set in the neck better than the ones that are high set in the neck. So, yeah, he's basically all of my weaknesses all put into one.
Okay. I want you to think about coaching and a problem that you often see and how to fix it.
Yeah, there's 2 things that I see a lot, and one of them is that the riders aren't really getting the horse in front of the leg, so they tend to just annoy the horses a bit with their legs, and the horses are sort of, I always say that we see our thing as, I'm getting on my horse to train him today to do dressage, and the horses see it as, I'm going to be caught and someone's going to sit on me and ride me around for 40 minutes and sort of pull and push, and I'm going to try and do the minimum. I'm going to try and get through this as doing as least I can. So, the only thing that really encourages that horse to do what we want them to do is aids and the use of aids. So, what I see is a lot of very, I wouldn't say sloppy, it's probably a bit harsh, but just not effective aids where the horse is getting what they want. They're getting to do the minimum, and they're getting the consequence for them doing the minimum might be just putting up with someone's leg bumping on their sides for 40 minutes. But they've got away with not doing the maximum, and we're really, if the rider was more effective and just made the horse respond once or twice off their leg and then let their leg be quiet in between, then they'd then teach the horse to respond to their aids. And that, I see that in everything. You see that in, horse being in front of the leg, or whether the horse is hanging in the reins, or not listening to the half halt, or anything. It's just getting more response from the aids that we have available to us. So the same aids that I use is the same aids that everyone uses. Like we haven't got a magical set of aids that we use, like professional riders use. We use the same aids as the amateur riders. It's all the same thing. It's just that we command a bit more response from them, and we have a better reward system. So it's really just drawing a bit more of a black and a white difference between what we're doing and what people of less experience are doing.
Okay. That you said too. You said the riders in front of the leg.
Yeah, I guess in front of the leg, and oftentimes most horses will naturally drift a bit to the right, and what ends up happening is people start they feel that, and then they kind of pull a little bit to the left. So you'll see a lot of horses going around with the neck bent left, but then not enough flexion to the right.
Yep.
So, you'll see a lot of horses that need to be straighter when they're going left.
Okay. So for horses that need to be straighter, what do you tell the riders? About correction?
Well, straightness always comes from the shoulders, so putting the shoulders straight. So, what I'll get them to do is straighten the neck up first, so they can at least get the feeling of the shoulders, and then start to teach them how to ride the horse slightly in shoulder four, or be able to determine the difference between what is flexion and bend and what is turning. So, so turning, really getting shoulder control. Teaching people that turning a horse is from the shoulders, not from the neck and not from their legs. It's turning the shoulders, that the legs are just a secondary aid, and flexion and bend is just a secondary thing. The actual functional turning of the horse comes from the front feet, from the shoulders.
Okay.
And that's one of the least, probably the most least, one of the least most discussed things in the whole sport, but it's one of the most important.
Yep. No, that's good. That's a good explanation, I think, to for those horses, for the riders to understand how to correct it. Can you tell me and just explain a bit more about frame control, feet control, transition control?
Oh, well, you've obviously got that from the DVD, did you? Or?
I do a little bit of homework. Bit of homework.
Yeah, you do. You have, because it's. Rosie Ryan said to me, "You can't use the word control." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "I don't like the sound of the word control." And I guess definitely don't want the word control to mean like we're control freaks. But what it is the same way you control your car. You've got control over the whatever it is, your bike, your car, shopping trolley. It doesn't really matter. But basically, where all that came from was I figured that after I'd trained with all of those good people that I mentioned before, I really felt that there was three main things that they all spoke about. They spoke about it in different ways and with different priorities, but there were three main things, and that was to control the frame of the horse. So to, via the pressure of the bit in the horse's mouth, you got to teach the horse to actually be round. And frame control is one of the most controversial things in the whole sport. And I don't know which sort of population you get listening to your podcast, but unless someone's really walking the shoes of a dressage rider and competitor, I don't believe they should be commenting on frame control, because dressage is the only sport in equestrian or in any horse pursuit that has such a defined level of control of the outline of the horse and the neck and the head position. So, show jumping, camp drafting, hacking, you name it. Dressage has the most defined amount of frame control. So unless someone's really tried to teach a horse the movements in dressage with frame control, I don't feel they should be commenting. But also, dressage does a very lousy job of explaining itself when it comes to this fact. So things like roll curve and neck, that's all frame control, right? So basically neck up, neck down, nose forward, nose shorter, rounder, lower, higher, long and low. All these things are about frame control. And all of them have been used for good and all of them have been used for bad. Even nose in front of the vertical, if the horse is in a bad place in its neck, with its withered down and its neck sort of up, pulled up and backwards, even though its nose is in front of the vertical, it's still not good for the horse. So all of the things are good and bad that we've seen over the years. But dressage does a very lousy job of explaining itself. And the reason people use these neck positions is to try to get better frame control. That's one thing. And the other thing is nose bend tightness, right? So nose bend tightness and the fact that people want to do the nose bend up, for good or bad reasons, is because they're having trouble getting the control of the frame or having trouble getting the control of the... And when I talk about frame control, it's about flexion, bend, response of the horse to stay over the back in the rein. So again, nose bend tightness, it all stems and it all comes out of people trying to get better frame control. Some people have loose nose bends, some people have tight nose bends. And again, dressage doesn't explain itself very well. They tend to legislate rather than teach, rather than educate, if you want to say that like that.
Okay.
So, but frame control is virtually just being able to control the vertebra, all the vertebra within the horse's body, so from its back of its tail through to its ears, and to be able to control. And frame control differs to each horse, right? So every horse is born slightly differently in its posture. And our job as trainers is to identify what horse we're dealing with, what posture this horse has by nature, what posture that horse gives us when we're teaching the horse to do special, movements or collection or whatever it might be. And we have to then try to correct that posture, just like someone corrects a school kid when they're sitting in class, sit up straight. Our job is to correct that posture so that the horse can then use its body better.
Mm-hmm.
And without the control over the frame and the actual whole horse's shape, we can't do that. So we have to have aids, and they're virtually just pressures in the bit that show the horse where the most comfortable place is to be.
Okay. Yep.
So it's a very long way of describing that, but it is important that riders really understand that the frame control for their horse, like everybody knows, everyone, Blind Freddie, my grandmother could tell you how you're meant to present a horse to a judge. Pole the highest point and nose on the vertical. That's easy. It's how do we train them to get the best out of them and then be able to have the skills to present that to the judges on the day. That's the hard part, because just putting pole the highest point and nose at the vertical is not the way you get the best out of your horse.
Okay.
In daily training.
All right. What if we can just go on then to foot control? We'll talk about just an explanation of foot control, foot control or feet control, I should say. Not Yeah, so the horse's feet.
Yeah, so basically that's being able to control shoulders and hind feet. So so with
so this is going back to the straightness.
Yeah, straightness. So imbalance. So basically, whether it's a camp rafter or a show jumper, most people know that if they put their leg behind the girth, like one leg behind the girth, that's how you control the hind legs left and right.
Mm-hmm.
But just coming back onto the shoulders we discussed before, the shoulder control is not discussed that much. And it's equally as important, if not more important, in dressage than the control sideways of the hind legs. So teaching riders how to actually control a horse's shoulders and get the front feet, like when you ride shoulder in, you see all of your lateral exercises, every single one of them is an exercise in shoulder control and then placing the hindquarters appropriate to the movement. So even a half pass, for example, on the diagonal is a trevere on the diagonal. And just like when you do trevere up the long side, unless you can keep those shoulders on the straight line up the long side, you don't have trevere anymore, because if those shoulders wander off the track, suddenly you're not doing trevere. And it's the same with a half pass. If you can't control the shoulders on the diagonal line, and those shoulders come off that line, whichever you're riding, it might be KX, for example, you haven't got half pass anymore that's accurate. You might have a version of half pass, but you haven't got the half pass that's going to get you points. So being able to control shoulders Canter pirouettes is another one. Walk pirouettes. They're exercises of turning shoulders around hind legs, not pushing the horse around with your leg. Like I said, even travers, where it's the most obvious exercise of putting the horse's hindquarters to the inside, unless you've got shoulder control, you haven't got travers. So whether it's shoulder in, renvers, travers, leg yield, half pass, you've got to have shot pirouettes, you've got to have shoulder control. And that's the control of feet, really, being able to put your horse's feet wherever you want them to be, whether it's shoulder forward, shoulder in, four-track shoulder in, renvers, you've got to be able to put them there.
Okay. No, that's good. Transition control.
Yep, so that's just pace. So really, whether it's piaffe passage, and I'll just use the example of trot, right? So the control of the trot pace, we really have to start off with working trot. I always say there's 7 trots, you have to have for a Grand Prix horse. There's pony trot, there's working trot, there's collected trot, medium trot, extended trot, there's piaffe and passage, and I didn't count those, but I mentioned there's 7 now. There's 7 last time I looked. But yeah, pony trot, for example, is just a very small trot that's got no power in it, and it's more closely related to piaffe than collected trot.
Okay. I was going to say you lost me on you'd lost me on the pony trot, but I understand now. Yep.
Yeah, every horse has to have a pony trot. Even the most spectacular 3-year-old trotting horse that's got the white bandages on in Europe, if that horse can't learn pony trot, it won't piaffe.
Mm-hmm.
It might do passage on the spot, which a skillful trainer will identify that and then teach it how to do some form of what looks like piaffe, but it could actually be passage on the spot. But it won't be piaffe unless it can really do pony trot, which is little short quick steps, just like that Shetland pony. That would be more related to piaffe. And then passage is more related to like working and medium trot, asked to wait. So they're all versions of trot because they all have 2 beats. Right? They all have a diagonal pair and 2 beats. So that's why pace control, for example, for someone who's at home training every day, they need to train the 7 types of trot in their horse, or the 5, and then try to train piaffe and passage as they go. So just because they've got a big, spectacular moving horse, and I've had plenty of these, right? That come in, the riders will come into a lesson and they just want to show me how big the horse can trot. Well, once I've seen that the horse has a spectacular big trot, I don't really need to see that again. Like, I'd much prefer to see what it can't do and then work out how to make that better. So I've had a lot of frustrated riders who are a bit inexperienced, and they've come in and they've just trotted around, and you go, okay, well, now let's try to shorten that and let's just come back to short little, pony steps, and the horse can't do it, and they get very frustrated, and they wonder why the hell are we trying to teach their big, spectacular, moving, trotting horse to do this trot that means nothing. But inevitably, a couple of years later, when the horse has been sacked because it couldn't go to Grand Prix because it couldn't piaffe, that's when they come to you and go, I know what we're doing.
Yep.
So that's where the pace control thing came from. So canter's the same, pirouette canter's the equivalent to canter as what piaffe is to trot.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you teach the horse to be able to collect the canter. The canter pace itself is an easier pace to work with in a lot of horses. So you tend to sort of advance the collection of the canter before you'll get the horse to piaffe. So a horse, for example, at elementary should be able to canter the collection, for a couple of strides. That would, the same muscles would be required for piaffe, but then it's not piaffing till later on.
Okay. Oh, hang on a sec. Let me interrupt to let people know about the horse industry qualifications at onlinehorsecollege.com. If you have a look at the flexible options, there's online theory with practical components that can be completed by video or with a qualified expert in your area. That website again is onlinehorsecollege.com. Thanks. All right, just moving on now from riding to non-riding. You've got some non-riding retreats. Now that sort of seems a bit funny for someone who's a rider, professional rider, coach, trainer, to have non-riding retreats. What's the idea of the non-riding retreat?
Well, I believe that the 40 or 45-minute riding lesson that we all go around delivering,
yep,
I believe that that's one of the most archaic types of coaching. In an era where Australia, as a sporting nation, has come up with some of the most innovative ways of coaching around the world. That's why you see a lot of Australian coaches getting pinched by other countries at Olympic Games to go and coach the other countries, because Australia's been very innovative in their coaching styles. Mm-hmm. And I believe that an old 45-minute riding lesson, you'd be lucky if the rider gets half of what you say. And, yeah, it's good because they get to ride their horse and, yeah, they saves them going to the gym. But do they really understand your training system? So, for example, someone turns up to you tomorrow to have a lesson, and unless you've had a chance to really explain your training system to them, they are just picking up snippets of info that you're barking out at the moment of the problem, you know. Yep, he's bent too much to the left, straighten him from the outside, and then you go about explaining why you're straightening him from the outside, but then really does the person really get it? And I found this out when we started running this thing called super clinics. What happened there was I tried to go down the road of offering to a group of people, say 5, 3 days training at home, and they came in and I gave them a little taste of what a high-performance clinic would be like, you know. So we did some video reviewing. We did some discussions on the training system. We videoed and reviewed whilst they were on the horse. So we had a TV set up on the side of the arena. And what I noticed was people that I'd been working with for 3 years improved more in that 3 days than they had in the 3 years prior. And I thought, man, I'm missing a lot here. There's got to be better ways to deliver this stuff. So what happened then was, it's impossible to run that style of clinic for a big number of people. So we also identified that there's a lot of people out there that have challenges in their riding. Now, it might be they suffer from competition nerves and stress. They suffer from the fact that they think everyone thinks they're hopeless. They might have a husband that's complaining because they're spending too much money on their horse. You name it, I've heard it. And that distracts them from being better riders. So with the non-riding retreats, we cover a lot of topics, and one of them is the training system. So I explain exactly what we talked about before: control over frame, control over feet, control over pace. And then I get up there on the whiteboard and we draw it out and we just completely run through that. And then I jump on a couple of horses and I'm wired up so I can talk and the people can listen, and I just talk honestly to myself as I'm riding around, and I make a lot of mistakes, we all do, and show the ladies that, it's predominantly ladies, that how, I make mistakes, but if I let myself dwell on them, then I won't do the job properly. But if I make a correction, it might be ugly for a moment, but then it's sorted out. So we go through the riding system quite in depth, and then we go through some ways for them to handle training for competitions, getting themselves mentally ready for competitions, competing with a purpose, rather than competing with the goal of, well, I'm just going to go out and wing it and see what happens, and then get disappointed and drive home in tears when they didn't get a good score. Actually train with a purpose in mind, set yourself up to go there and do the job. And if you don't do the job on a day, we'll work out what happened and then change it for next time. So actually get a much better idea and much better structure around their competing, how to focus on the right things, rather than think about, there's that lady on the other side of the ground and I don't want her watching me warm up. She intimidates me. Get all that out of their mind and start thinking about staying square on the horse, getting the horse round over the back, getting the horse, in front of their leg, and starting to ride the processes of doing things rather than thinking about the outcome. So my view is that people who think more clearly and are better structured make better riders, and they don't need a horse to come to me to learn that.
Okay, and how many days are these non-riding clinics or non-riding
3.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, now you've got boot camps as well. Can you tell me a bit about the structure of the boot camp?
Yeah, that's the newest thing we've come up with. That'll hopefully be out next year. That's going to be a 6-week, 6-module thing. So I've virtually broken the sport into 6 areas, and we haven't quite finalised the wording on all this, but I've virtually broken the sport into 6 areas, and it covers topics such as horsemanship, training system, and then preparing for competition, competing intelligent competing, actually riding well. Because doing well at shows can be a learned behaviour. You don't have to have the best horse to go win a class. You just got to ride the best test. And that comes down to a lot of arena smarts and arena savvy riding. So that's the sort of stuff I want to put out there. And we're going to present that in a module. So it's going to be some written content, some Q&A, and some video footage each module. And people will work through the module and then be able to set themselves up with a bit of self-testing. We can't really do things like, send us your video because, you might end up with a couple of hundred and you just don't have the time to do it. But, some self-checks, self-checks. But what I've noticed is for a sport like dressage, which is highly structured, every level has, like I said, you go on Google and you can look up the requirements of every single level. You can just see so much. But for a sport that is so structured, probably the most structured sport of them all, it is filled with people who are riding with no structure. And we want to provide them with the structure from the modules, step by step, come back to it. And that's why we did the DVDs originally, because I thought to myself, for $70, people could buy a DVD. And if I do the job properly, I can explain virtually all the words and all the things I'm going to explain in a lesson. But for $70, they can put it on whenever they want. So where they'll go and spend $150 to have a 40-minute lesson with me and probably only get half out, probably only hear 30% of it. So that's what I thought with the DVDs. And it's the same with the boot camp, that the people can, for whatever, I don't know what it's going to cost. I've got a person that handles all that stuff for me and just puts all that structure together. But for that money, they can just revisit this thing for the rest of their life. And I want to put as much as I can into that and give them as much structure so that no matter when they look at it, whether it's now or 15 years' time or whatever instructor or less coach they're using, they can take information from that coach and whack it into this structure and feel like they own a structure. Because really, whilst ever you're riding around with someone else's voice in your head, it might be your voice, might be mine, might be, Anki Van Grunson's DVD, whatever it might be. Whilst ever you're riding your horse with someone else's voice in your head, you're never really riding off your own feeling. It's only when you start riding on your own system and your own voice in your head that your voice is telling you the shoulders need straightening or you need to get better frame control here, like the horse is hanging against you or the horse is not in front of your leg. And it's your voice saying that, then you'll ride it way better. You'll make better decisions and you'll make better reactions. And that's what we want to do. We want to try and provide a structure so people can actually start making their own system of training.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have those. We'll have a link through to those on your page on Horse Chat. So it'll be horsechats.com/Brett Parbery. Brett, have you got a book? You've talked about DVDs. Have you got a book that you'd recommend, one that you've used that's helped you to complement everything else that you do?
Yeah, Vicky Bryden gave me the Principles of Riding, which is that German handbook, in my first year of dressage, and I read that thing like every night and went over it and over it and over it. And I think that was the one that really cemented to me the aids that had to be used. But Harry Bolt gave me a copy of his book, and that is a fantastic book, again, for delivering the aids, like just telling people the clear way of using the aids. But I also love the book of Alaric with Rainer Kemker.
Yep.
That was a good read. Yeah, but for people wanting to learn, I think you can't really go past that Principles of Riding, which is the German handbook. I think there's Principles of Riding 1 and 2.
Is it advanced? Is it?
Like, there's been some great books too, recent ones like the Tinnika Bartels. I mean, that's a great book. Tinnika and Imka Bartels. I mean, Carl did a great book as well, Carl Hester.
Yep.
But yeah, Principles of Riding, which is the German handbook.
I think that's got to be our most popular book. I think the Principles of Riding then is the Advanced Principles. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Now, what are you looking forward to at the moment? I know you've got a clinic changes coming up, but just over the next 12 months, 2 years, what you're planning?
Oh, look, we'll have a go. We'll have a go for Week next year.
Yep.
World Equestrian Games. I've got Will Myers is probably my number one horse for that. Zeppelin, hopefully, if I can work him out. He's a bit like a Rubik's Cube, so I'm trying to work him out all the time.
Okay.
Hopefully I'm in the mix for that. I mean, there is the opportunity to be selected from Australia for the World Equestrian Games, so I'll definitely want to be in there. And if I'm not getting myself selected, well, I hope I'm pushing the person that does get selected to be at their best. You know, that's my job as well. So, yeah, there's that. I mean, we've got a couple of big things coming up fairly soon with regard to our training stable. That's all happening. And then and that'll take 12 months to get that worked out. And then, just try and get myself, getting the most out of these lovely horses that I get to ride all the time and trying to work them out.
Okay. All right. Now, you said your philosophy is to make it look like it's easy. Can you just sum that up into a lesson for everyone? Have you got anything else that you can say about making it look like it's easy, just so people then have got something to take away and think about when they think back to this interview?
Probably two things. One, that you try to have no tension in your body if you can. Like, try to be quite, not floppy, but relaxed and supple in your body. And if that takes a little bit of off the horse work, then you have to do that. Now, I stretch quite a bit. As I get older, I get a bit more stiff, so I spend a lot of time on the floor. Of a night time when my son's gone to bed, I usually jump down on the floor and stretch quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So I feel that the more supple I can be, the nicer I'll be to carry for the horses. So I think making sure you're supple and you're following the horse and you're letting the horse move naturally. And I think the next thing is to have a clear succession of aids. So, to make it look easy, you've got to have a succession of aids. So that really means that you ask with a soft aid, a light aid, and then you use a progressively firmer, more annoying aid, quicker and annoying, until you get the response you want. And then you reward that horse with, pressure off and some form of praise. And then you ask again with the light aid. So if you're not riding with a nice, clear succession of aids, and that might not be the best word for it, but it definitely like a light aid, a slightly stronger aid, and then a bit more of an annoying aid that makes the response, you'll never really achieve that feeling that you can have the horses going and doing the minimum. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you doing the minimum, they're doing the maximum. Mm-hmm. Because then it's the cue of the lighter aid which hopefully makes them respond, and not the fact we have to use a strong aid all the time, which makes us then look a bit ugly on the horses. Yep. So that's it. That would be the thing. I think people to get riders really thinking about the aids they're using. Not be clumsy with the aids, because the aids are the same way that you and I speak, right? So the aids are the words, and it's how we put the words in the sentence as to what it means to the horse, and making sure that the sentence is clear for the horse. Yep. All right, I think that's good. That's something to take away. Now, Brett, how can people contact you? They can contact me through the Facebook page, which will go through to, I've got a PR girl that handles that, and then that'll come to me. And then we have an email. There's an email address on our website, which is bmparbery@bigpond.com. Either of those would be probably the best way. And those details will also be on your page, which will be horsechats.com/Brett Parbery. Brett, thank you very much for taking the time out today to speak to everyone, or speak to me, speak to everyone. It's been great talking to you, and hopefully people have learned a lot from you taking your time. It's certainly been engaging. It's been very good. Thank you. No, thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, wait, before you go, if you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.